Lamar Jackson is one of the greatest college football players to ever live. He has racked up so many awards and accolades, it is crazy. And for the 2018 NFL Draft, he was put behind quarterbacks such as Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, and some others. And it's really amazing because he was considered a top player in college football. And into the pros, he had a pretty okay combine, nothing crazy like everyone expected. His throwing was bad. And that really dropped his draft stock, so he became the 32nd pick in the first round, which many people thought he was drafted too high. I believe the Baltimore Ravens made the right choice. Lamar Jackson has been a human highlight reel since his high school days. And I never knew that Juke was Lamar Jackson because it got popular on Vine and it's still a huge clip on YouTube used in multiple sports vines. It's just crazy how much of an icon Lamar Jackson is, and he's been making these crazy plays since high school. Lamar Jackson, he played 2 years of varsity football at Boynton Beach in Florida. He had 31 passing touchdowns, 22 rushing touchdowns, and over 2,000 passing yards in 2 seasons. He was a 3-star recruit and not even in the ESPN Top 300. Isn't that insane? He was the 17th ranked dual threat quarterback in the country, so he was not very highly rated back in his high school days, which is insane, even though he put up some pretty decent numbers. And then, of course, he ended up signing with Louisville. In Lamar's freshman year, he played in 12 games and started 8 of them. Louisville went 8-5 and 5-3 in conference play, while Lamar put up 1,840 yards, a 54.7 completion percentage, 12 touchdowns, and 8 picks. And he also ran for 960 yards, 5.9 yards per carry, with 11 rushing touchdowns. And in his freshman year, he was the MVP of the 2015 Music City Bowl, as he passed for 227 yards and 2 touchdowns, and ran for a Music City Bowl record, 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Louisville started 0-3 with the other quarterback. They lost to number 6 Auburn, 31-24. And their kicker, John Wallace, went 1 for 3 in field goal attempts. They lost to Houston, 34-31. Louisville had 4 turnovers, and Lamar had 2 picks. But they still had a chance to win that game. But kicker John Wallace went 1 for 2 from the field, missing the game-tying kick. They lost to number 11 Clemson, 20-17. Kyle Bolin played, which is their backup quarterback that year, and he threw 2 interceptions and got sacked quite a bit, while John Wallace, the kicker, missed a field goal. Then they lost to Pitt, 45-35. Bolin and Lamar both played good, surprisingly. Both the quarterbacks played amazing, but Louisville's running backs couldn't produce as they had a total of -1 rushing yards and only 17 first downs. Pitt's offense killed it, while Nathan Peterman had 4 touchdowns and 0 picks. They also lost to number 10 Florida State, 41-21. While Lamar played great, they just simply got outplayed. Then in his sophomore year, Louisville managed to go 9-4 and 7-1 in conference. And here in his sophomore year, they had a chance to be really, really good. But let's take a look back at all of their games. In the first game of the season, they beat Charlotte 70-14, while Lamar Jackson set a school record with a total of 8 touchdowns, and he scored all of them in the first half. So could you imagine how many touchdowns he could have had if he would have played the whole game against Charlotte? Just crazy. He would have easily set an unbreakable NCAA record if he would have played the whole game. And in his sophomore year, they beat number 2 Florida State 63-20. This was when No, it wasn't when Jameis. Actually, was it? I can't remember. But they beat number 3 ranked Florida State 63-20. And then they lost to number 5 Clemson 42-36. Jackson had 586 total yards in that game, and he went up against the Clemson crew that had Deshaun Watson. Watson threw 2 touchdowns to win it in 7 minutes in the fourth quarter. 2 touchdown passes in the last 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. That is crazy. It's really hard to beat a Clemson team, especially Clemson has been stacked the last 5 years. They've just had so much talent go into the NFL, and that talent has produced so much college wins. It's insane. And then, in the 11th game of the season, they beat Houston 36-10. And this was when Houston was really good. And they were stacked, and they had Tom Herman as the head coach. And then, sadly, they took an L to Kentucky 41-38. Even though Lamar had 3 interceptions and Louisville had 4 turnovers in total, they got outscored 10-7 in the fourth quarter. The defense just couldn't hold it together, and they lost to Kentucky on a last-second field goal. And then they went to the Citrus Bowl, and they lost to the LSU Tigers 29-9. And of course, that LSU team was stacked. And at the end of his sophomore year, Lamar Jackson ended up with a 56% completion percentage, 3,543 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And he also ran for 1,571 yards on 6 yards per carry and 21 rushing touchdowns. That is insane. That is better than most college running backs. And then he won the ACC Offensive Player of the Year, the ACC Player of the Year, the Heisman Trophy. He was an All-American, the AP Player of the Year, the Maxwell Award, and he won the Walter Camp Award. So yeah, his sophomore year was pretty successful. And if the defense would have done their job in a couple of games, and if luck would have went their way, this team would have been really good. Probably national title contending worthy. But sadly, they weren't. Just Lamar himself. And then in his junior year, after Lamar's insane season, Heisman year, the Louisville Cardinals went 8-5 and 4-4 in conference. And the reason to that is a lot of their talent went to the draft after the 2016 season. And I mean a lot. Most of their defensive starters were seniors, and they either graduated or went to the draft. And yeah, they did not stand a chance against the number 13th ranked Clemson Tigers and the number 24 ranked NC State. Then they lost 45-42 to Boston College on a last-second field goal. They lost to Wake Forest by 10, and then they lost the Tax Slayer Bowl 31-27 to Mississippi State. Lamar had 4 interceptions, but Mississippi State ran in the game-winning touchdown in the last 3 minutes. And then, at the end of his junior year, which really didn't look very good, he still ended it with a 59% completion percentage, 3,660 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 10 picks. He also ran for 1,601 yards, 6.9 yards per carry, and 18 rushing touchdowns. He was the ACC Offensive Player of the Year and the ACC Player of the Year. And the thing that you really notice, his completion percentage increased every single year. From his freshman year, it increased in his sophomore. From his sophomore year, it even increased in his lackluster junior year. And so did his completions and attempts in throwing it. So he decided to run less, throw more. Plus, Louisville just got better. He was ranked number 10 in the NCAA in rushing yards and number 2 in rushing yards in the ACC in 2016. Then in 2017, he was ranked number 6 in the NCAA and 1st in the ACC in rushing yards, which is just insane if you think about a quarterback running it, getting that much rushing yards is just insane. And yes, he did have a lot of rushing attempts, but you got to think half of it was avoiding defenders, getting out of the pocket because he was about to get sacked. And then for rushing touchdowns in 2016, he was ranked 5th in the NCAA and 1st in the ACC. And then in 2017, in rushing touchdowns, he was ranked 9th in the NCAA and ranked number 1 in the ACC. So again, he's he's a quarterback who is not too bad at throwing the ball, and he can run like a running back. He's so elusive. He's a young Michael Vick, is basically what these stats are showing. And then, number 2, he's ranked second in the ACC in career rushing touchdowns. And then in total yards in 2015, he was ranked 7th in the ACC. And in 2016, ranked 3rd in the NCAA and number 2 in the ACC. Then in 2017, he was ranked number 1 in the ACC and the NCAA. So yeah, one of the best college athletes ever. In career total yards, ranked 20th in NCAA history and ranked 2nd in ACC history. And in total touchdowns, 2015, he was ranked 5th in the ACC. 2016, he was ranked 2nd in the NCAA and 1st in the ACC. Then in 2017, he was ranked 4th in the NCAA and 1st in the ACC. And for career total touchdowns, he is ranked 23rd all-time NCAA and 2nd all-time ACC. And in points, in 2016, he was ranked 1st in the ACC. In 2017, he was ranked 3rd. And now, let's get on to the NFL. In the first 9 weeks of the NFL season under Joe Flacco, the Ravens went 4-5. They lost to Cleveland by 3, to the Saints by 1, and to Pittsburgh by 7. So yeah, this Ravens team is really good, but they just really needed a game manager, which Lamar Jackson is one of the best game managers in the league right now. Lamar only got snaps to relieve Flacco late games or to handle some read option plays. And in Week 11, that's when Lamar made his first start. It was a home game against the Bengals. Joe Flacco was injured, and Lamar was pretty impressive, throwing 13 for 19, a 68% completion percentage, and 150 yards, but 0 touchdowns and 1 interception. Then he ran for 119 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, and that set up the running backs to pound it in there and for a nice field goal to win the game, as the Ravens won 24-21. Then the very next week, they beat Oakland 34-17, and then they traveled to Atlanta in Week 13 to beat them 26-16. Then they had to go to Kansas City in Week 14, and they lost to the Chiefs 27-24. So yeah, to lose to one of the best teams in the NFL, especially in your own conference, by 3 points, that is really impressive. Lamar had a 54% completion percentage, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 picks. Then he also had 67 rushing yards on 4.8 yards per carry. So he played amazing against Kansas City. It's just, well, they got outplayed by the Chiefs. And then in Week 15, they beat the Buccaneers. And in Week 16, they had an impressive upset win at LA against the Chargers, 22-10. As Lamar had a 54.5 completion percentage, 204 yards, and 1 touchdown and 0 picks. Then in Week 17, they beat Cleveland in the AFC North Championship game, 26-24. Baker Mayfield put up an impressive 376 yards and 3 touchdowns, but it came with a price with 3 picks as well. While Lamar Jackson had 179 yards, 90 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. They clinched the AFC North title after the upset win at LA and a nail-biter to Cleveland. Lamar finished out his rookie season going 6-1 on a 58% completion percentage, 1,201 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions with 1 game-winning drive. He had 695 rushing yards on 4.7 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. And I couldn't find the exact stat of fumbles lost, but the amount of fumbles he had was 12. And I know he recovered quite a few of them from the games I watched. So yeah, he had to have recovered at least 5 or 6. But still, to be fumbling it that much, he really needs to clean it up. And he didn't really throw a lot of picks. So that's a good sign to come, especially because he was supposed to be not so good at throwing the football. But yeah, his fumbling, he really needs to clean up and hang on to the ball better. And then we go to the wild card wild card game that just happened. They lost to the LA Chargers 23-17, which in my eyes is really, really impressive. I mean, they were getting killed by the Chargers all game, and then they came back in the second half and only lost 23-17. Lamar Jackson had a chance to go take him down the field and win it, but sadly enough, he got strip sacked at the end, and the Chargers kneeled out the rest of the game. The Chargers defense was just too good, as Lamar put up a miserable 48.3% completion percentage, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. But the 1 interception was not his fault, as it kind of went through the hands of his receiver. It was like a drop pass kind of thing. It was tipped in the air. Really weird. He got sacked 7 times, but he still had 54 rushing yards on 6 yards per carry. But again, fumbled it 3 times, and one of those was a strip sack. I think 2 of those were, but I know one of them at the end was. And yeah, just a bad game by Lamar Jackson, but also a bad game by his offensive line. And the Ravens were actually really good. The Ravens really should keep all this team together, and Lamar really needs to stay the starter. All he needs to do is hang on to the ball better and be more aware in the pocket. Those are really the only 2 things he needs to work on, and which is really impressive. He is a Michael Vick prodigy, in my opinion. He is such an elusive runner. He can break sacks. He can get out of the pocket, scramble. He's just amazing at finding, making plays, and being a game manager. So, that is my take on Lamar Jackson. He has been one of the most underrated rookies in the NFL season, and well, I don't really blame him or anybody else, because this quarterback class in the 2018 draft was stacked. You had future guys like Sam Darnold being touted as one of the next greats, Josh Rosen being the next Peyton, Josh Allen supposed to be a wild card, Baker Mayfield, the polished man, and then Lamar Jackson, the absolute scrambling quarterback that people said he should move to running back or wide receiver. Well, I think he really proved himself his rookie season that he can be a quarterback. He just needs to get a little bit better, and I'm pretty sure Harbaugh and the quarterback coach will work on that during the off season. So, if you guys like this video and you like Lamar Jackson, please leave a like. Comment what you thought about Lamar Jackson's season, if he's underrated or not underrated, your thoughts on Lamar, etc. So, yeah, please leave a like and subscribe for more NFL and NBA content.